Good morning, everybody. Welcome to TLD Chat. Thursday is sometimes we call it Organization and Industry Day because of the rings of focus. We can talk about that later. But we have a guest today, which is fantastic, and I will get to him in just a moment. Or after a little bit about TLDC and TLD Chat and TLDC 18. TLDC, the Training, Learning, and Development Conference Community and Chat. The conference is coming up January 29th and 30th in lovely Phoenix, Arizona. Always lovely that time of year, I guess I should preface that with. But we'll be having a fantastic time. 2 full days, beginning morning all the way through to the evening. So when you're booking your travel and thinking about attending, you should absolutely make sure that you don't fly out that second day. Wait till the next morning because we're going to pack both days with content for you and lots of fun networking opportunities as well. So that's the event. And if you wanted to become a member, hit up tldc.us. And don't forget, we have an annual membership subscription and the monthly subscription. But TLD Chat, which is what you're all hanging out on today, will always be free. The recordings and the podcast and the newsletter, everything we do here on the TLD Chat portion of TLDC is always going to be free. And we do that as a... well, mostly as a way for us to stay connected with you guys as well. I learned from as much from you guys as I hope you guys learn from the guests that we have and the value that we provide. So, as always, feel free to reach out to me and let me know if you'd like to be a guest, or if you know somebody who you'd like to have on as a guest, or you'd like to engage a little bit more deeply. Then feel free to reach out and let me know. But so let's get started. Let's start chatting with our guest for today. And our guest today is Rob Rogers from Medutopia. You may see him in the chat as Medutopia. And boy, I guess what we should start off with is, first of all, hello and good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Awesome. So our mutual friend, Brian Fanzo, hooked us up on Twitter like just a week ago, right?
Yeah, that guy's got unbelievable energy. So I'm not surprised he hooked up two people to work together. That guy's just crazy, insane, energetic.
He's a machine. He was one of our keynote speakers at TLDC 16, which is what sort of kicked off this whole TLDC thing.
Yeah. I just want a fraction of that guy's energy. I mean, I'm drinking coffee right now, and I won't even come close to what Fanzo can do. I want to be.
I think it's because you have to drink the Monster. It's not. He doesn't do coffee. Yeah. He does the Monster drinks.
I mean, I guess there are other things you can do, but I'll stick to coffee.
Yeah, that normally does it.
Yeah.
Yeah, he is definitely a machine. But so Brian got us connected. Where did he meet you, or where did you guys connect?
Well, I've been following him on Twitter for a while, and I mean, it's hard not to. The guy's everywhere. And I just started a company a few months ago, and we're having a big course in Lexington, Kentucky, November next year. And I was looking for an energetic keynote speaker who could speak to how to connect to millennial learners. And he's the first person that comes up everywhere you search for anything like that. So he's actually going to be speaking with us. We can talk about it later, obviously, but the course is in actual castle. There's a castle right outside of Lexington, Kentucky, a real like Harry Potter medieval type castle that this conference is going to be in. And so Brian's going to be there as a keynote. It's going to be great.
Nice. Hey, that sounds like a great place to have TLDC 19. We'll have to like the venue.
Yeah, the interesting thing is this castle was built. A guy built it for his wife. I'm lucky if I can buy roses for my wife, but this guy built a castle for his wife, and then they got divorced, I think, and the castle sat there forever, and then part of it burned, and then they rebuilt it. It's gorgeous. And then just probably 2 months ago, a couple of my friends bought it for the I think it was 8 million, just way out of most people's budget. So anyway,
Wow.
the castle was purchased by a group of doctors, and they're actually looking to have events. That's one of the things they're trying to market the castle for, is for events and weddings and stuff. And it's really, really, really cool and set up for events.
Wow. It looks like Kara North, our fabulous, fabulous team member, is all over it, as it being
I see
her
that.
hometown. And
That's
so,
awesome.
Kara, I want you to get hooked up with Rob and see what we can do for TLDC 19, especially if it's close to the Kentucky bourbon.
Everywhere in Kentucky is close to Kentucky bourbon. So yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, I'm looking at some of the comments. If you go to the KentuckyCastle.com, you get all the pictures and what they've done to the site. It's incredible. It's an incredible venue.
It looks like we've already got more registrations for TLDC 19 than we do for 18. Maybe we should just move TLDC 18 to Kentucky.
Yeah, when bourbon's involved, registrations tend to go up.
Well, we can still make bourbon involved in Arizona.
That's true. There's bourbon. You can get bourbon in other parts of the world besides just
right.
Lexington.
I think there's a great distillery actually down in Tucson that makes a pretty decent whiskey. So, I should give them a call.
Yeah.
But I believe we're off topic. Gosh darn it! But I tend to do this every now and then.
That's okay. So. That's the fun part.
Hey, here's you. I totally forgot. In case anybody was wondering, Rob Rogers, EM educator. Tell me a little bit about that. So you're Medutopia, and you're doing a lot of stuff, I think, around education. But give us kind of the background. Like, how did you stumble into this world?
Well, I trained, I went to college, medical school, and I did 2 residencies in emergency medicine and internal medicine. And then I went right into academic practice in Baltimore, Maryland. I've been in Kentucky for about 2.5 years. And so, since 2002, when I finished training, I've been in academics. I've worked in hospitals. I've always been an employee of a medical school. I've done the stuff that you usually would do if you're in academics, where you go from assistant professor to associate professor, and it's a traditional job where I work in the emergency department, and I teach students and residents and see patients, and it's what most people would imagine if you want to be a physician, what it would be like. But I always had this yearning that there was something else I could be doing. Now I get to teach all the time. I get to innovate, some in my job, but over the years, I guess I had this thirst and hunger to be able to do more, to be able to innovate and create more. And I think what you'll find in a lot of academic jobs, not just doctors, but nurses, paramedics, anybody who's in an academic institution, there's what I call this creative and innovative glass ceiling, that you get to a certain point and places typically don't want you to innovate, which really sounds strange that an academic medical center wouldn't want you to do more, but they want you to see patients. They want you to do things for them. They want you to publish articles in journals that no one reads. They want you to do like the traditional, and that's fine. And that's how I got to this point. But over the years, I realized there's a much more creative and innovative way to teach people. And so in 2009 or so, I got involved in Twitter. I got an account like most people do, and they didn't know, I didn't know what to do with the account. I was putting things in the account like, hey, I'm at the Boy Scout camp meeting right now. And I went back and looked at my account and looked at my first tweets from 8 years or so ago. And I thought, this is just a stupid waste of time. No one cares where I'm not Justin Bieber or Kim Kardashian. No one cares where I am. So I quit Twitter. And then 6 months or so later, I got back into it. And over the years, since 2009, 2010, I realized that I had connected with people all over the world and made many friendships with people in many different countries. And I had accelerated my career faster than any other traditional means of faculty development in an academic institution. So very, very early on, I realized that social media was the key to developing my own personal learning network and simply boosting my career much faster than traditional means. It's similar to, and this is not my analogy, but just imagine walking up a set of steps versus an escalator. Which one is going to get you there faster? And so social media was simply a way of boosting my career. So I got more and more involved in education. People around the world, I noticed, were and still are starving for education. They're starving for the things that you're hosting right now. They're starving for this kind of stuff where they can learn from people in other countries. And so I realized that the world was changing, that I could not do everything I wanted to do in my academic job. And I still have my day job. In fact, I'm reading a book right now called, you may have read it, The 10% Entrepreneur. I don't get any money for saying that, by the way.
Oh, no, that's a new one for me.
I wish I did. It's by Patrick McGinnis, but it's essentially how to keep your day job. I have a job. I have a full-time job. And then the 10% piece is, the Medutopia, the company I created, the innovative courses I'm trying to create, the networking on social media, development of podcast, meeting people like Brian Fanzo. That's my kind of 10% gig that, hopefully someday could be turned into a 20, 30, 40, and even higher. Because that's where I love my job. I love my full-time job at the University of Kentucky. But if I could do even more innovative, creative stuff, I would. So here's what I think, and I'll summarize with this. Here's what I think I felt and still feel. And this is what I think a lot of people feel, whether they admit it or not. There is a thirst and a deep thirst on behalf of a lot of people out there that they're looking for something else. If you talk to people who have unrest in their positions, they're looking for something. And it's in many cases that entrepreneurial spirit that they see other people involved in. They realize they could do something else, that they could take it to the next level, that they could do even more than they have in their normal jobs. There's this, I guess the best way to put it is there's this sense of unrest that people are feeling all over the world. And, I figured that it was time to explore it. And the more I explore it, the more fun I have.
Yeah, I love it. I'm looking for something right now that I just have to share with you that I think you will totally get a kick out of. Oh, rats, I'm not going to be able to find it. But the point I wanted to make was that your story is fantastic for me to hear, because it's been the story that I've been telling for probably 15 plus years now. I went through the same cycle in the really, really early days of like when RSS feeds first became a thing and when blogging first became a thing.
Right.
And I still have my blogspot.com blog that I originally started on. And I remember the very first time I got a comment from somebody in Japan, it blew my mind. Oh my gosh, somebody from another country is talking to me about something I wrote and put online. And it was the craziest feeling. And then it's just like a Pandora's box. Once you open that and jump in, it's like, it's crazy. You see, like, all of a sudden the world just opens up, and there's other people, not just in your neighborhood, not just in your city, not just at your university, not just in your state, but around the whole entire globe, that are into the same stuff you are. And all of a sudden it's super easy to connect with them. And you're like, this is awesome.
Yeah. And I used to think, the world is a big place, but social media, Twitter, all the other platforms have really shrunken it down to this whatever you're involved in. For me, it's medical education and teaching and social media. You're all of a sudden you're connected with these people. And I have met people and developed friendships that I know for a fact would never have happened had it not been for the power of social media. There's no way I would have connected with some of these people, maybe by chance, but probably not.
Oh yeah. Well, and it's funny because like the one day you show up that our international contingency doesn't show up, but we normally have quite a few folks. Let's see, we've got Bethany from Scotland who shows up to our chats. We've got
Scotland.
And Marco from the UK, and we've got a whole bunch of friends in the UK that hang out with us. And I've got a handful of contacts in Australia that I met through social
Yeah.
media, but
Great,
of course
great
they're
people.
still sleeping right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it is truly, and I was in the education realm before all the social media stuff. So I was into the
Mhm.
tech. We were, whew, boy, this is going back. So we were building e-learning before it was called e-learning on CD-ROMs.
Wow. I
Actually,
remember those
yeah,
CD-ROMs.
actually, one of the first little multimedia shows I did was synchronizing slide projectors. You know, the rotating
Oh
carousel
my, I
ones.
still have an old carousel somewhere in my office.
Yeah, so remember there used to be a little machine where you could sync those up.
Yep. Yep.
So you could have a stack of them and sync them up and have them synced up to an audio track of some sort, and then each one would shift and change. And so you basically, it was early multimedia. And then we did a laser disc one, and then CD-ROMs came out, and all that old tech went away. And then we went to DVDs, and then we went online, and then we got
It
here
went
today.
crazy. Yeah.
It's been a crazy ride, let me
Yeah.
tell you.
Yeah.
So let's get into that education side of it, because one of the things that we talk about here on TLD Chat is just how many people stumble into this idea of wanting to educate people and wanting to get into this field, and just kind of have that sort of intrinsic motivation to teach and to
Right.
share,
Right.
right? And so we call them accidental instructional designers, or
I like
people
that.
just stumbling into this career
Yeah.
and whatnot. And I would venture to say that most of the people in the chat right now are probably fall into that camp, and then either just educate themselves on
Yeah.
maybe some of the science behind what it is that we do, or go back and get a degree in it or whatever. So what was sort of your path? I mean, you gave us kind of a little bit of a background
Yeah.
on it from the company standpoint and your medical career and all of that, and then getting into it and wanting to do sort of that 10%. But what are your thoughts? Like, where are you sitting right now when it comes to effectively educating folks on what your topics are?
Well, coming from an academic background, I mean, you can imagine most of the time was spent in a lecture hall, or, I teach in the emergency department during my shifts when I work. But
Oh yeah. Let me just stop you there
sure.
real quick. Let me interrupt. Yeah, let's dial back, and because maybe folks don't even know what we're talking about when we say you're a doctor and an EM educator. That's emergency medical education stuff is your focus, right?
Well, originally, yeah, I mean, that was the original Twitter handle that I came up with, but it's evolved. You can't go
Okay.
back really and change your handle, but it's really evolved into all things medical education for every specialty and for all levels, for physicians, nurses, paramedics.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, good to know. Yeah, I just wanted to kind of level set on the kind of the topic, who your audience is, kind of, and what your where your direction is going. So cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So
The education side.
most of the places where we usually teach are in a classroom or small group sessions or working in the in the hospital. But what I started to find out with Twitter, I use Twitter as the example because it's my favorite platform, but you can do this with other platforms like even Snapchat, which I can talk about how I'm teaching with Snapchat. But what I noticed was that instead of teaching like a group of 30 residents or doctors in training, or a group of 10 medical students in a classroom, you could take that education, whether it's a link to an article, or Periscope live video feed, or um, taking pictures during an event, or podcasting, or sending out voice and audio links. You could teach the world with Twitter. And I don't know that I came up with the term, but the term that I like to think I came up with the term, but the term I'll use is the global classroom. You're literally teaching the world. You're not just teaching one classroom. So the interesting thing is, over the years, I've come to realize that this works, because over the years, you'll get feedback from people. I've gotten direct messages and emails and texts from people in Europe, Saudi Arabia, South Africa, all over the world, who watch these events. And there is a starvation for this education globally, because in a lot of countries they don't get it. And this is one primary means on how they get education. So I realized very quickly that social media does allow you to teach in the global classroom. And so you could say, well, why do that? Why do you do it? And honestly, it's a selfish reason. I have a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old, and not to get too corny, I guess, but I've always talked to them about, like my 16-year-old, for example, who's almost 17, is going to be applying to college, and we're talking to him about what he wants to major in and where he wants to go. And we've tried to teach them over the years that, you should choose a job, and it puts a lot of pressure on kids, especially when they're 2 years old and you're telling them you should choose your job carefully. I'm kind of kidding, but we've tried to teach our kids that, you could do a traditional, you could be a physician or a lawyer or a nurse or a policeman you could do any of these things, but ultimately the job you choose, think about this, should somehow positively impact the world, because let's face it, the world can be a terrible place. You watch the news and you watch natural disasters and terrorism, and I mean, the world needs more positive stuff. And if you could train and choose a job where you actually get to have that type of positive impact, then that's the job you should choose, because you'll feel better. You'll feel good about it every day. You could certainly choose any job, but if that job doesn't have a positive impact on the planet or positive impact in people's lives, then you should question it. And so I took that inner sort of core desire that I try to transmit to my children, change the world, literally change the world. And I try to do that with education. And so combining that sort of inner desire with social media and how to spread your message in the global classroom just became a natural fit over the years. And I realized, and then it snowballs from that. Like once you start to do that, you develop relationships, people know that you're in it for the right reason. And all of a sudden your career takes off because people know that your interests are pure and that you really do want to make the world a better place.
Yeah, it is. It's interesting. Like, yeah, I just hearing you talk about that, because I have kids about the same ages as yours. So I have one in college already, and two left in high school. So, and it is, it's a challenge, but you just want them to be happy. My daughter, my oldest daughter in college, she's kind of going through that thing too. I don't know what I want to do. She's changed her major a couple times and her minor underneath it, a couple times. And I just keep telling her to just keep experiencing stuff. Just have experiences, right? Don't get so hung up on the words and the classrooms and, what interests you. Go learn. Just keep continuing to learn different and new things that you have an interest in. And a career and a job will come out of it when you find that thing that you're passionate about,
Yeah. And the odds are, there's a book called The Nomad Society by John Moravich, who's an educator. I mean, he makes the point, and a lot of people have done this as well, that, the kids of, our kids are essentially going to change jobs 5 to 10 times in their careers. They won't have that job that the, traditional families that, you're an attorney for 50 years. They're going to change jobs 5, 6, 7, 8 times in their lifetime. So yeah, it's things have changed. We're getting old.
We are. I can feel it.
Maybe the people watching this aren't old, but I'm getting old.
I can feel it. I can surely feel it. Hey, we got a good question dropped in the Q&A box here. So let me just feed this to you. Is there liability with the teaching format? You're thinking about malpractice and stuff like that. It being in the medical field, do you always have to have disclaimers and all that kind of stuff? Or do you worry about that at all?
Yeah, I don't have many pet peeves in this world, but I do have a couple. The big one is, it's not really a pet peeve, but it's something that I'm not sure is necessary when people have these disclaimers in their Twitter bio that, my opinions do not represent. I just saw one yesterday. My opinions do not represent the opinions of my employer.
My employer, yeah. I know.
So you've got a limit to the number of characters you can have in your bio, and you've taken up the entire Twitter bio with a disclaimer. Now, and I can't be that critical because some hospitals, some places probably make them do that. I understand that.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, most of the stuff that I'll be honest, I just don't worry about it. I'm not giving out information that is, I'm not usually giving out that much medical information. Like, this is how you treat this condition. This is how you treat that condition. It's
you
more
inject yourself with heroin or
something. This is the appropriate way to ruin yourself. It's mostly teaching and social media and education and podcasting and personal learning networks. Cool. It's not but that is a valid question that I think still needs to be discussed. There are people who do give medical advice, and there have been some lawsuits and things discussed in the last couple of years about. So yeah, it doesn't really affect me, and to be honest, I just don't worry about it.
Yeah,
I've been okay so far.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about the course that's coming up. I'm curious, and kind of how you've put it together and sort of what that looks like from an instructional standpoint.
So I'm actually just putting up the course. So our first course is going to be next November, November 2018 in Lexington, and a lot of the courses I've been involved with have been essentially courses for doctors, nurses, anybody in healthcare, pharmacists, dentists, anybody in healthcare who teaches. Our courses have typically been how to present, how to give feedback, how to lecture. I guarantee you, everybody who's watching this and making these comments on the right has been to a conference where there's 30 bullet points on every slide, and the presentation
8-point font.
Yeah, and there's cars zooming in at the bottom and all these motion things, and so just terrible PowerPoint presentations. And unfortunately, medical professionals are subject to some of the worst presentations on the planet. And so, we also teach presentation design and delivery based on Gar Reynolds' work and Nancy Duarte's work.
Yeah.
And so this conference coming up is a very different kind of conference. It's not just how to teach medicine, how to teach. Basically, it's a train the trainer model. We're teaching.
I was just going to say, so
Yeah.
you're really talking about sort of faculty education.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're teaching teachers how to teach. So we're educating medical educators how to educate students, residents, and other people. And so we give them the tools that are cutting edge. And so we're not just teaching old stuff.
This must be my theme for the week. I spent a couple hours at Mayo Clinic yesterday.
Oh yeah, you told me about that.
About faculty education. Yeah.
But it's also, more importantly, it's as you go from baby boomers down to Gen Z, everybody, these groups are all different.
Right.
And here's an example of other things that we go way beyond just how to teach medical educators how to educate. I have a group of residents who I noticed several months ago during one of my shifts, like they're all on Snapchat. Like Snapchat, I forget, I just saw recent numbers, how many million people in the world are on Snapchat. Like it or not, it's here to stay for a while at least, and everybody's on it. And the millennial learners are on Snapchat. So I thought, if they're on Snapchat and I have Snapchat, why not teach some of what you do on Snapchat to this group? So in Snapchat now you can have up to 32 people in a group. Yep. And we have 30 residents that I work with. So I basically created these groups, and it's a closed group. Obviously, only they get it. And I send out teaching pearls, and so I've utilized that social media platform to connect with that group of learners. And so that's only one facet of what we do, and what we'll do with this course next year. The course in Lexington is also give, and that's why Brian Fanzo was invited to help, the older, not necessarily older, but the different generation learners. Because I think there's a widening chasm between educators and learners. Yep. If you ask an old professor in a medical school, hey, do you have Snapchat? They won't even know what you're talking about.
They still have a flip phone.
Or if they have a phone at all. And I'm not suggesting everybody be on Snapchat, but the point is, we try to give educators tools that connect people with learners better than ever before. And so if there's a better connection,
where your learners are. Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
Know your learners, and know where they like to learn. Where is it they hang out? I'm not suggesting you stalk them at Starbucks, but are they on Instagram? Are they on Snapchat? Are they on Twitter? What do they like? How do they like to learn? What kind of structure of lectures do they like? I mean, knowing your learners is one of the keys. So the course, if people are at their computers now, a friend of mine actually said, you should have this course and call it Ikigai. So I had to look up what Ikigai meant. We okay?
Oh yeah, you're good. I'm pulling it up.
I saw you looking around. So Ikigai, I had to look up how to pronounce it, and I had to look up what it meant. If you actually Google Ikigai, it's a Japanese word that you'll get these images of 4 overlapping circles. And I forget exactly which the circles are. It's what you were meant to do, what you're good at, what you're passionate about, and what you could be paid for. So with this course
yeah.
we're doing next year, we've added elements we've never had in our courses before, like teaching educators more about how to connect with their learners on social media and how to infuse a spirit of entrepreneurism into your academic job or whatever job you have, which no conference really ever talks or teaches people how to break out from academics and do something different. So it's an education conference. It's teaching educators how to educate, but it's infused with an entrepreneurial spirit and social media, presentation, design, and delivery. And then the one ingredient, which is getting a ton more press in medicine, is wellness and resiliency and life skills.
There
And
you go.
so there'll be a lot of that. We'll have psychologists on hand. It's
So I'm guessing
basically an overall course.
Being a podcast guy, I'm guessing you're a big a Tim Ferriss fan.
I do love me some Tim Ferriss. He does some nutty things, but that's fine. He's Tim Ferriss. He can do it. Yeah, I like. I've tried not everything. If you know some of the things Tim Ferriss has tried, I've tried some of the things he's talked about, like mushroom coffee.
Oh
Have
yeah,
you heard
what
him
do you
talk
think
about
of
that?
that?
It actually tastes very good. You can buy it on Amazon. It's not the kind of
Yep.
mushroom you would think. It's not hallucinogenic. It sounds disgusting. But yeah, I tried it. I'm a big Tim Ferriss fan.
He considers that sort of his brain drink, right? He offers it up to people when they're doing some really hard work together. And after lunch, he'll fire them up with that drink. Did you feel like it kind of gave you a buzz and made you smarter?
The strange thing is, it made me feel different than regular coffee. It didn't give me, my heart rate didn't go up. I didn't have a tremor. I didn't feel bad. I didn't feel that different. But I have to admit, it could have been placebo effect. I think, a little bit more alert.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I haven't tried it out yet. I mean, I've tasted it once I heard him talking about it, but I haven't done my own full on experiment. And
yeah, I bought it on Amazon and I had it in a box on the counter, and my family walked by, my kids and my wife, and I'm used to this in my house. They just shake their head and walk by like Dad bought something else on Amazon. It's called mushrooms.
Dad's ordering mushrooms again.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh man, that's awesome. All right, so I've got the website up here. Speakers. Awesome. All doctors, I'm sure, or people I don't know.
Not all doctors. There's some emergency physicians, internists. Okay. Chris Curran, who's at the top there, is a friend of mine who has a podcast called the Podcast Engineering Show. He's a professional. I was
going to say, that name sounds familiar. Yeah, I think
this guy is amazing. He's a professional sound engineer. I mean, his works include like some of Mariah Carey's work. He used to work in the music industry. So he's a professional podcast engineer. He's got some big time clients. He teaches people how to podcast. He is an amazing guy, just very interesting guy. But yeah, a lot of these people are doctors. There's a pediatric surgeon at the bottom, Ross Fisher, who's a presentation design and delivery expert. And then we've got, Brian Fanzo and a couple of other non-medical people coming. So yeah, it's a nice big mix of motivational speakers that aim to change the world of medical education.
And the castle does look very cool, by the way.
You should see the inside. It is, you walk in and you feel like you're on the set of Harry Potter.
It's very cool.
It's
so
great.
It's interesting. And this just dawned on me. I'm having one of these moments. I live near a mountain here in Phoenix called Camelback Mountain. And there's actually a castle on that mountain just right up the street from me. And I think it was up for sale recently, and I thought somebody bought it and was trying to turn it into an event location. But I think a family ended up buying it and just lives there now. But
yeah, it's from that picture. I think in the back you can see there's four turrets to the castle, the four corners.
Oh yeah, you can kind of see one off to the right there.
And each one of them is a 2-story bedroom, a 2-story room. So it's a 16-bed hotel as well. So you can have weddings there, events, and stay there in the hotel. So pretty cool.
It's very, very cool. Yeah, sorry, I'm taking us off track again. But this is cool. So so you are a practicing medical educator.
Yes,
is that
full time?
An appropriate way to put it?
That'll do it. Yep.
Right. And so, and does that mean that you're also still in the residency part? Do you still practice, and do you
Yeah.
do the medicine as well?
Oh yeah, yeah. I practice alongside the residents. I mean, when so I'm an attending physician, which basically means we're the board certified physicians in the emergency department, and by the way, we would be the ones who were sued if something went bad. So we're in charge, and then we have residents under us that we're training, and then
Okay.
medical students, and so yeah, I see patients along with the residents. I work in an affiliate emergency department just a mile down the road from University of Kentucky, where I work by myself, just practicing by myself. I do a couple of shifts a month at that hospital. So yeah, I do the whole thing. I see patients, teach people how to take care of patients, work in a busy trauma center. We see lots and lots of patients. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I was just going to say. So all of a sudden felt this real interest in the trauma part of it, right? I mean, those shows are always very interesting to people, and I was just visualizing in my mind, you being a part of that. And do you actually do like you have to stabilize like really critical like
Oh
car
yeah.
accident
Yeah.
trauma and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah. So yeah, you name it, I've seen it.
Wow.
It's not like, I will say that I hope I don't offend any of your guests, but I absolutely don't like the show Grey's Anatomy, because number one, you can't tell where these people practice. They're all over they're in the hospital ward, they're in the clinic, they're in the operating room. You can't tell like what they do. It's really
It's a
unrealistic.
drama,
It is. I mean, there's gotta be people in call rooms doing stuff, and it's not realistic. The show that actually probably comes closest to what we actually do was the old show ER. Not do you remember the show ER with
Oh yeah,
no
totally. Yeah, that
Noah
was
Noah
huge back
Wiley, and
then.
yeah,
Yep.
that was like early 90s when it started, 94. Anyway, that show
Yeah, I think
is
so.
that show is the most realistic show. But all of the sexy stuff they're doing, saving lives, people bleeding, is maybe 5-10%. The rest of what I do is chronic back pain, people who come into the ER with the flu, and we're not running around,
Yeah.
holding pressure on bleeding blood vessels the whole shift. It's about 5-10% of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's fun. I like my job.
Yeah. No, I mean, I always thought it would be great, but I'm one of those people that always just kind of felt like it was outside of my reach. I didn't really learn till later that I'm actually smarter than I thought I was, and could probably have actually survived and gone through it. But,
Well, it's never too late. There was a guy in my medical school class when I was first year medical school. I forget what his career was before, but I think he was 53 when he started medical school, and everybody else, of course, is early 20s.
I was just going to say 24,
Yeah,
25,
23. I think I
maybe.
was 23 when I started,
Yeah.
and he was 53, 54 years old, and had a big long mustache with a curl on it, and he's a practicing doctor now. So it's never too late for you if you want to go
Right.
into.
You know what? I'm all in. I'm going for
I
it.
think you should
'Cause
do it.
I went when I went to the Mayo Clinic medical school. I had the opportunity to see it a couple months ago before their very first cohort went through. So the medical school
Oh,
for
cool.
Mayo's been around up in Minnesota for a long time, but they
Right.
just opened the one down here in Scottsdale.
Yeah.
So I got to see the state of the art, the facility that they built
Oh, here it's very
before
nice.
anybody had gone through and done it. So I saw the
Right.
cadaver lab when it was just pristine. There had no cadavers had been in there yet or anything, and it was really really cool.
Yeah, that brings back, that's my best memories of medical school are in the cadaver lab. Yeah.
They even had that. I don't know if anybody heard about that one, but remember there was I can't remember what university it was, but they did an like a slice, different slices of a body, and they had images. They took images. They like a
Yeah.
micro sliced the whole entire body. They had
Right.
that
Right.
particular virtual
Yeah.
cadaver there
Yeah.
for people that didn't want to work on a real one, I guess.
Yeah, and we didn't have any of that digital stuff back when I was in medical school. It was all traditional. Here's a cadaver, and you dissect it and go over everything for a year. But now everything is they study it based on CAT scans. They have all these 3D models, virtual reality. I mean, it's exploded. Yeah.
So here's something we always talk about in L&D, or learning and development and training and all that kind of stuff, is that sense of real time sort of working out loud comes up a lot on our side of things. And so I'm trying to visualize what it might be like for you. And by that I mean things like live streaming, like when you're talking about Snapchat and stuff like that. I think case study stuff is the best stuff for learning, right? I mean, that's why you guys do residency, so you can see as much and learn as much as you go through.
Right.
But is there ever any opportunity? I mean, I know there's always patient rights issues and things like that involved. But is there ever an opportunity to step aside real quick and record an experience that you just had and share it with your students, but like before you forget? Or do you do any sort of capturing of maybe some real-time learning that you can share?
Yeah, obviously, unfortunately, actually, it's a good thing. The patient privacy is a good thing, but people are obviously very careful about, making sure patients aren't shown, making sure you can't see their face.
Right.
And so I think there's been a little bit of a reluctance. I think people have just said, listen, this is just too difficult to do. I think if you're intelligent about it, and there's a couple things I've done. The first I'll mention, there's a podcaster who's also an emergency doctor named Jess Mason. She actually, because depending on where you work, your hospital may or may not allow any of this stuff. Some hospitals are very, very clamped down on what you're allowed to do. She actually is able to take a recorder into a room. She got permission from the hospital, which is huge, permission from legal, and she gets patients to agree to it. And she actually interviews patients about what they're experiencing right then and there. And then that sort of narrative podcast gets incorporated into a larger podcast. And it's just really powerful because you can hear the patient, they're actually speaking. You can hear you can hear the monitors in the background. You can hear, the nurses talking. And it's just a very real, authentic experience that I think people really like. Most hospitals probably would not let you do that. I will record. One thing I will do is if something comes up during a shift and I forgot to teach it during that shift, is I'll record. I'm a big fan. A lot of people like to send text messages. What I'll do is just voice record on the iPhone and then send that little audio file as a text. So I'll send that out to a group of learners with my thoughts about a case, perhaps. You could do Snapchat as well. And then I keep a microphone in my bag for, instances where there might be a teaching pearl or some kind of, for example, a resident looked up something on Twitter and found an article that helped treat a patient. I could quickly pull out that microphone and interview him about what he did, maybe as an example. And then I could actually incorporate that into the Medutopia education podcast. So yeah, I keep stuff on me that I can hook to my iPhone, independent mics. But I love the way that Jess Mason has actually captured live interviews in the emergency. It's pretty rare. She's the only one that I know is doing it. There is a plastic surgeon. I forget his name. Is it Dr. Miami? Somebody in the group might know. There's a plastic surgeon in Florida who live Snapchats operations in the operating room. Plastic surgery.
Oh yes, I think I saw that once.
I can't remember.
Somebody shared it with me, and I accidentally watched it. And a lot of times that stuff makes me queasy, and I accidentally clicked on it.
It's live, and I'm assuming he gets permission from the patient. But he's got thousands and thousands of followers, and that's an extreme example. But I won't be doing that.
But I mean, if you think about it, so. I mean, let's just look at it purely from that instructional standpoint, right? I mean, this is amazing that those types of experiences can now be shared instantaneously and delivered across the world, right? If people that need to have that information or to see it, to learn something new. I mean, maybe it's a student in across the globe studying
Right, right.
plastic surgery. They've never seen that type of procedure before. Now they get to see it. Now they get to go back to their medical school and say, hey, I just saw this really cool procedure. Are we going to learn about it, or
Right.
are we going to do it? Just whatever. I mean, just the idea that social media can spark and influence learning, to me, is just so incredible.
Yeah, there's a pediatric intensive care doctor. His name's Chris Carroll, who's on Twitter, and he took this to the next level. I'm not sure if you've seen his feed, but he basically asked a question on Twitter, and what he created was a choose your own adventure uh, game, a medical education game. So he put out on Twitter, a child comes in with shortness of breath or whatever, and then he would respond to that tweet with, you walk in the room and the patient looks like this, and then he would respond to that tweet with another thing, and then he created another feed with the options, like, if you would like to give this child antibiotics, click here. And what he did on Twitter, and I think he actually posted how he did it on the physician who's probably got the most Twitter followers. His name's Kevin. Have you seen him? I'm not sure if you've seen any of his stuff.
I
If you
don't
go to
think so.
kevinmd.com.
Craig is our resident note taker, and so he's capturing all of this, right, Craig? Even though I'm waiting to get to your question in the question box.
Yeah, if you go to kevinmd.com, and I think it was September 5th or 6th, there's a post by Chris Carroll, and he actually describes how he developed this game on Twitter. And you just go through and click and choose the pathway. It's like
cool.
the old choose your adventure game, but it's Twitter based. And there's been maybe a few people who've done that, and people love it because it's turned Twitter into a game.
Yeah, well, we talk about games and learning and games for learning and gamification all the time.
That's
in this
exactly. I think
community.
that's the title of that article, is the gamification of med ed or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's yeah, there's a lot of rat holes we could go down there, but let me just jump over to Craig's question in the Q&A box here real quick. He says, train the trainer is such a difficult thing to get right. Do you have a vetting process for people you feel will not be a good trainer?
That's a great question. We hand select the faculty that teach, based on many things. One is the reputation they have. These are people we know for the most part. These are people we know how to teach, know how to transmit information. They know how to motivate and inspire. And we know that they know the appropriate, adult learning theory. We know that they have the complete package. And again, it's all based on the fact that we know these people. These aren't like new, for the most part, these aren't new faculty, and we don't know what they're all about. We've worked with these people. We've known most of them for several years. We've seen them speak. We've seen them inspire. I don't really, I guess, call it a vetting process. It's more of, we know what their reputation is as a trainer. We know that they do what a trainer should be doing, all of those things that we look for. So I really wouldn't call it a vetting process as much as it is, we know their reputation and we just know them. I know that's not really a great answer, but
no, that's good. So
maybe we should have a vetting process.
No, I think it cued my thinking to ask an extended question on that. When you're looking at these, you're trying to help these folks, right? What do you see as, like, when you're sharing your knowledge, like, what's the one thing that you normally find that could improve one of your instructors? Like, they're good, right? They're smart, they're great at what they do, but what's the most common sort of element that you find that when you tell them this one thing, or it teach them something new and different, that just elevates their game to the next level?
That's easy, and that's something that's affected me as well. I think there's this well, it's a tradition to have a screen with your PowerPoint being projected, and you've got your comfortable slides, you've got your everything mapped out, so that if anything went wrong, you just click to the next slide and you know what to say. Now, we've had maybe one or two faculty, but that's not what people want to see when they go to a conference, right? Unless you're at a scientific conference where they want to see all this data, they want someone to be able to stand up there and essentially be able to motivate, inspire, and not give information, but motivate you to get the information. They want to see people who can do this with no slides. That doesn't mean they don't want you to have slides, but they want the type of interactive person who has great eye contact, who bonds with the audience, who can walk around, answer questions, who's very comfortable, very conversational. And essentially the slide is just kind of in the background, with nice pictures. They don't, so
yeah, it's good support.
I've seen a few faculty who've taught, courses I've been in. We've given them feedback and these are great speakers, motivated educators, brilliant people, but they haven't broken the mold, or they've not gone beyond the presentation and design delivery interface of they're being so reliant on your slides. What most people do when they create a talk is they don't map out their talk. They don't do a mind map where they sit down and go analog. The first thing most people do is they go right to their computer and open up a slide deck on PowerPoint or Keynote and start making their slides. And that's, I think, the worst way to do it. You really want to sort of come up organically with what you want to teach and inspire people to do. And the slides are the last thing you want to work on. And in fact, one of the things we push with our courses is, and this is controversial, there's not great science behind it, although there's a book called, it's in my office somewhere, Multimedia Learning by Meyer. It basically gives the evidence behind like what you have on your slide actually matters. And so we've had a push to get rid of all the bullet points in all the slides. If you're going to have anything on a slide, it needs to be a picture or a video or something motivational or something that's definitely no bullet points, because bullet points put people to sleep. So that's been the one thing, is getting a few speakers to break beyond the PowerPoint bullet point barrier. And what we noticed at a course a few years ago is we showed up for the course, we did all the planning, and we looked around the room like, where is the slide, the screen? And this venue didn't have it. So we had all these faculty waiting to present with their laptops and their slide sets. And it essentially got transmitted to a couple of like small television in the room. And this was a big room, nice venue.
Yeah.
So we went from, and we didn't know that until the day we showed up, but organically what took place was almost all these faculty rose to the occasion, and they were able to, perform in front of this audience and motivate, as opposed to just stand there and just click through your slides, which is just so boring to watch. So that's been the one thing, is the way people present and design their presentations, and the way that we're reliant on slide sets. That's been a huge change. Most conferences don't even address this. You see stuff on Twitter all the time. I saw a picture from a cardiology conference recently, and people were literally making fun of the slide on Twitter. They were probably 25 lines of text on the slide, and it's just hard to feel good about yourself to see that.
The best lines I think I heard was, don't mistake your handouts for your presentation.
Right, exactly right. People come to see you speak.
Yeah.
They don't come to see your bullet points.
If they just wanted the information, you could have just emailed it to them,
Yeah. They came to see the show. You are the show.
Right.
Yep.
So I think I've got a much longer, deeper question, and we've only got about 4 minutes left before we hit that 9 o'clock hour. But I'm curious if you have ever converted any of these classroom lectures or courses into any sort of self-paced learning. Like, do you use Storyline or Captivate or any of the interactive authoring tools that are out there?
When I was in Maryland, I convinced my chairman to buy Storyline, and I played around with it a little bit. I mean, it's expensive, but it's phenomenal. And I've now, probably now, between now and next year, so the next 12 months, I'm going to be creating a lot of this content's going to be online. And again, I don't get any money for mentioning them, but there's a site called, I think it's called Kajabi, which is like this. It's one site that handles your entire, I first heard about it from a podcaster named Cliff Ravenscraft, who has a brilliant podcast on how to podcast.
Yep.
He's phenomenal. He lives in Northern Kentucky, not far from me, but he mentioned this on one of his episodes, and I looked into it. So Kajabi has this website where you get your membership, and you upload all your content and they handle everything for you. It's just one site. It's really well done.
Yeah.
You pick the price of, if you're going to sell your material, you pick whatever you're going to charge. And so that's probably what I'm going to go with. But most of that stuff, at least to start, will be made with, with simple cameras, and
Yeah, sure.
I forget the program. I've got it down here somewhere. ScreenFlow, where I could capture, for example, I could capture exactly what people see right now, which is the two of us.
Yep.
And then eventually I'll probably break into storyline, but there's a bit of a learning curve when it comes to those. But the storyline is, and the other one you mentioned, I forget, was
Captivate from Adobe.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of users who hang out in our chat that use both of those tools, is why I was asking. And I know we've got a lot of ScreenFlow users, but we also have TechSmith, who does Snagit and Camtasia.
Yeah.
They're big supporters of our show.
Yeah, Camtasia is great. I haven't used it in a couple of years, but I think anything you do is better than not getting, because we have all these great ideas, and we have these courses, and many people can't go to these courses. So yeah, I think what you're seeing is a lot of the trend now is people are taking their educational property online, and they're creating courses. Yeah, I think it's great. That's my plan.
Yeah, it's cool. It's very cool. Well, listen, we're out of time. I wish I could just sit here and chat with you all day. I love this kind of stuff. It's been so great to meet you.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on. It's great.
Yeah, it's a good time. So, for sure. So where can people find you besides the cool event in November in the Kentucky Castle? But in general, tell us a little bit about where they can get to you.
So I just put my email address up up in the column there. People can just email me directly. The Medutopia website is being created now, and that won't be up for probably a couple of months. It's going to be very robust. But once that's up, that'll go out on Twitter. The easiest way now probably is to just email me. Medutopia is on Twitter at _utopia. So Medutopia. But just send me an email if you've got questions or want to be pointed to something or just want to chat. Happy to talk to people.
Yeah, it'd be fantastic. I think our whole entire community is extremely experienced instructional designers, developers, authoring tool. We got some storyline experts here. We actually, Marco from the UK, I just saw him jump in. I guess he's been hanging out with us for a while. He works with a lot of virtual reality, multiplayer virtual reality, and stuff like that. So I think a lot of good learning and shared learning, I think, across the board would be great. I'd love to have you back on if you ever have some time.
Oh, anytime. I would come back for you in a heartbeat. And I'm looking to get into more. I love what I do in medical education, but I talked to Brian Fanzo a little bit about maybe trying to get my message out to the non-medical area of podcasting and all the stuff that you do. So if anybody's looking for a podcaster or a speaker, I might know one.
I'd love to have you out at our event. If you can make it out, TLDC 18 in January, it'd be fun to have you talking about that kind of stuff and sharing your knowledge with our crew.
Awesome. So where is it in January? Is it
in Phoenix?
Phoenix. Fantastic.
Yeah, you're on the East Coast, so it might be a little bit of a haul, but
yeah, Kentucky's almost another country, so I could fly from Kentucky. I'd fly.
Yeah, it'd work. Yeah,
thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's been great chatting with you and great to get to know you too. I'll send some more thanks to Brian. He's a good guy. I love him.
Great.
So
bye, everybody.
All right. Good to see you, man. Take care.
All right, take care.
Yep. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. That was Rob Rogers hanging out with us today. Thanks so much for hanging out. Thank you to Rob for sharing his emergency medical training, education, and his passion for social media and sharing what he knows. Seeing other people outside of our industry and meeting them and hearing how they're doing the work of training and learning and development. This is exactly the kind of stuff that I love to talk about. I hope there was some value in this for you guys today as well. I hope you learned a little bit. I know there are a lot of people out there like Rob who are doing educational, instructional content, and don't even realize that there's actually an industry for it and that we even exist, and that there are experienced instructional developers and content creators, and that we're here and we're here to help them, and hanging out here can inform them in the work that they do. So every time I find a new one that has never heard about us or is new to the whole idea of instruction, I love to just immediately reach out and see if they want to be on the show and hang out and get to know you guys, and to know that we're here to help. So it's been fun to have Rob hanging out with us, and hearing more about the work that he's doing. And I guess that's it. I'm over the 9 o'clock hour. So everybody have yourselves a great, great and fantastic day. And don't forget to register for the event. We were talking so much about his event. I don't want to forget about ours coming up in January 29th and 30th in Phoenix, Arizona. TLDC 18, TLDC18.com. That's this tab. I was on the wrong one. Please feel free to come and join us and hang out. It's going to be a great time. It's a different kind of conference, but it's going to be awesome. I'm waiting for the page to load here as I scroll through. So we've got the wonderful Ron Robertson from Picmonic, which is going to be an amazing talk, and for you guys to learn from. He's definitely somebody that's not connected in our industry, and I think you guys are going to learn a lot. And all of these faces that you guys are probably familiar with are already scheduled to be hanging out with us and sharing what they know. And there are more. So I am still working on that day 2 side of the schedule here. So do not fret if I've already talked to you and said that I'm working you into it. I'm just trying to figure out how to make all of that happen right now. So everybody hang tight. And we will talk to you all tomorrow. Tomorrow is Video Friday, and we have the wonderful as I choke on my words and try to remember, wait a minute, who do we have on tomorrow for Video Friday? I know it. I know it's in the chat somewhere. This is the time where the song and the music needs to come on, and Brent should have just stopped talking an hour ago. Oh, there we go. All I had to do was scroll down. Sarah Gilbert, that's right. Whew, man, that was a tough one to even remember. I just recently got reconnected with Sarah. I've known her for many years online, virtually, and in our industry. And we just got reconnected, and I invited her to be a guest on the show. And the only day that she can be a guest is on Fridays. So I told her, that's fine. We do Video Fridays on Friday. But she's awesome. She's been doing the work of training and learning and development for a long time, and she's got a ton of stuff she can share with us. And probably we can even lean it towards the video side as well, because I know she does a lot of that work too. So anyways, lots and lots of cool stuff to talk about. And I look forward to seeing everybody here tomorrow. Thanks for hanging out with us today. It's good to see you guys as always. Everybody have a great and fantastic day. Oops, except the volume's turned down.